Okay, Dwight, based on what we just discussed, did you want to go ahead and pay cash for the vehicle service agreement, or would you prefer we go ahead and just add it to the monthly payment?
Well, you know, Sean, I'm interested, but quite frankly, I don't think it's worth the $1,500. But I would be willing to pay the $800 because the coverage sounds like it works for me.
Okay, well, I can appreciate that, Dwight. And let me just remind you why we chose the coverage that we chose for you and your family today. Basically, the reason we chose the 7-year, 100,000 mile, zero deductible platinum coverage is because that's the coverage that best meets your needs. In fact, if you'll recall, one of the reasons you said you weren't initially interested in the vehicle service agreement was because you actually purchased one on a previous vehicle. You had a problem with that vehicle. In fact, if I recall, it was the CD player that went out.
Yeah.
You brought that vehicle in for the repair and they wouldn't pay for the coverage. Isn't that correct?
Yep.
If you recall, we talked about there are two different types of coverages. There's what we call our exclusionary policy, which is our most comprehensive policy. It's the most factory-like coverage that we offer. Basically what that means is everything is covered except for what is excluded and listed in a small box. And the things that are listed in that small box are generally wear items such as rubber, you know, shiny metals, glass, that sort of thing. And those things aren't even covered under your factory warranty. Now the other type of coverage, which was the coverage you had on your last vehicle, is what we call named peril or gold or stated component. And what that means is it has to be listed in order to be covered. And if it's not listed, it's not covered. Right. And that is much more limited in nature or scope. And so what we're offering you here today is the platinum or the exclusionary coverage. And if you had had that type of coverage originally, it would have paid for that repair. So we didn't want you to find yourself in that same position again in the future. So we've chosen maybe the more expensive coverage, but again, it's the right coverage for you and your family. So I can appreciate it's a little more expensive, but I think it's probably the right way to go. So did you want to go ahead and pay cash for it, or would you like me to add it to your monthly payment?
You're doing good, and it makes sense to me, and I do apologize. I made my first offer based on the previous one that I'd purchased before.
Problem. Don't worry about it.
But so I'm comfortable. I'll give you $1,000 and we can kind of move on, and I'm good.
You know what, and I can appreciate that, Dwight. And in fact, the way you're feeling right now is precisely why we here have chosen to adopt what's called a fair and consistent pricing policy. And let me explain to you more in detail what we mean by that. You see, before we adopted this philosophy, the first thing we did is we did research with our customers. And what we wanted to learn as a result of this research was how did our customers want us to do business with them in the future moving forward. And what we learned from this research is basically three things. We learned, first of all, that they want us to offer products of value. Secondly, they wanted us to offer products of value at a competitive price. And thirdly, and maybe most importantly, they want us to offer a fair and consistent price with those products. They told us in no uncertain terms that they did not feel comfortable doing business in an environment where they had to worry about whether or not someone might have come in the day before them, bought the same coverage on the same vehicle, and paid a lower price than they were being asked to pay. And they certainly didn't feel comfortable worrying about whether or not someone might come in the next day and get the same coverage on the same vehicle and pay less. So as a result of this policy, which was really driven by our customers, I can assure you that whoever sat there yesterday looking at the same coverage on the same vehicle either paid the price I'm asking you to pay or they didn't buy it.
Okay.
And as a result of this policy, I can also assure you whoever sits there tomorrow looking at the same coverage on the same vehicle, they either pay this price or they won't buy it. What's absolutely critical to understand, though, Dwight, is that discounting simply isn't an option. Because if I discount the product for you, then I will have lied to the customer yesterday and won't be able to say the same thing to the customer tomorrow. In other words, if I discount the product for you, I wouldn't just be selling the product. Frankly, I'd be selling my credibility, and my credibility just isn't for sale. Now, please don't misinterpret my enthusiasm for pressure, Dwight, because as I mentioned earlier, if you didn't see the value in the products and services we're offering for the price we're asking you to pay, then we certainly wouldn't expect you to take advantage of them. But again, that's not my decision, that's yours. How would you like to proceed? Did you want to go ahead and pay cash, or would you like me to add it to the monthly payments?
Wow. Well, I can obviously tell you're pretty serious about this, and it really sounds good, Sean. Unfortunately, I don't pay retail for much of anything, so I like the product. You need to sell it. I'd like to buy it. I'll offer you $1,200, and can we just write this up?
Yeah, well, I can appreciate that. In fact, you know, Dwight, something just occurred to me that I think might work for us. You know, one of the things that we could do, which would make this product more affordable for you, is we could actually go from a 7-year program to a 6-year program. Now, let me explain to you why I recommend doing that. Not only will it enable me to offer you a better price because we're reducing the coverage, but it probably won't even affect you because you're going to run out of your coverage, remember, based on the discussion we had earlier, based on the miles you're driving, not time anyway. So as long as you continue to drive the car the way you've been driving it in the past, it won't even have an effect, but it would save you a little money. How does that sound?
No, well, you know, I chose this model. I'm probably going to keep this for a while. All makes sense. So I want the 7 years.
You want the 7 years?
Absolutely.
So you may not drive as many miles moving forward?
May not. I'm not sure.
Okay, well, if you don't think that you're going to drive as many miles, the other thing we could do is we could actually reduce the mileage rather than the time. So we could go from a 7-year program into a 6-year program, and that may not affect you. Would that possibly
Sean,
work?
you told me about the 7100, so
Okay.
I got to tell you, the 7100's it.
Well, another option would be possibly going to a $50 deductible. That would save you a little money.
We're getting there, but no, the no deductible. You already sold me this thing. You know what? Tell you what. This all makes sense. I know that you've got a process here at the dealership, but you've got a customer here in front of you today. Tell you what, $1,450, I'd be fine. That's close. And the good news is this conversation's just between you and me. So what do you say?
Okay, well, obviously you're not interested in the product for the price we're asking you to pay. And even though it's only $50, it is $50. And like I said, there's a bigger picture here. So I'm going to do what I agreed to do earlier, which is go ahead and honor your decision. So why don't we go ahead and move on? Fair enough?